From Carr, Riggs, and Ingram, this is It Figures, the CRI podcast, an accounting, advisory, and industry-focused podcast for business and organization leaders, entrepreneurs, and anyone who is looking to go beyond the status quo.
I'm Doug Mims. I'm a financial institutions partner with Carr, Riggs, and Ingram in the Atlanta office. And I'm here today with Rob DeMumbrian from our Nashville office. And Rob, I guess the biggest challenge today was for me to pronounce your last name correctly. And
you did a great job.
I'm not sure that I did, but at any rate, Rob is here today to talk about cannabis banking. And Rob, I'll just let you introduce yourself to the audience.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it. And yes, I'm Rob DeMumbrian. I'm a partner in the Nashville office of Carr, Riggs, and Ingram, serving the financial institutions industry. Have over 25 years of experience in working with financial institutions, everything from external audit services to what we call risk advisory services, loan review, internal audit, regulatory compliance. So anything that our financial institutions clients need, we try to help them with.
Good. So cannabis. It's an interesting topic. It's from a variety of perspectives. I was talking to my 81-year-old mother yesterday, and I told her that I was going to be moderating a couple of podcasts. I left out the part that one of them was going to be about cannabis, although I don't know if she would know what cannabis is. Obviously, she would know what marijuana is, but I left that part out. So it's kind of a interesting topic in general.
It is an interesting topic. I mean, today we're not talking about anything morally about it. We're talking about banking cannabis. But it's an interesting industry because you don't find many industries that explode like these do and happen so quickly that other industries that service this industry, they have to figure out a way to service it. And that's where we are with this right now as this industry's taken off. Trying to service it, financial institutions in particular trying to service it. It is interesting to watch as it evolves. And really what started this is, back in the 70s, marijuana, cannabis, all cannabis, became illegal federally under the Controlled Substances Act. And so since that time, cannabis has been illegal. It's a legal substance at the federal level. Well, over the past few years, states have diverged from that and have started legalizing marijuana in some form or capacity. Right now, we have 33 states that allow it for medical use, specific medical use, plus the District of Columbia. We also have 11 states that are doing it for recreational use.
So what you're saying for the listener is we've got a law in place that's been there since 1970 at the federal level, but yet we've had different laws passed at the state level that differ from that federal law. So we have a gap between those two.
Which is not a good place to be for anybody that's a financial institution wanting to service this industry in a state where it is legalized. It makes it very difficult for them when there's laws that do not reconcile. And so also what happened in the end of 2018 with the 2018 Farm Bill, the definition of marijuana changed to where hemp was no longer considered marijuana. Had to meet certain guidelines, obviously, to be able to be considered hemp, but it opened up where that became a federally legal substance.
So is that the primary impact of the Farm Bill? Were there other impacts from the 18 Farm Bill that are relevant to banks and credit unions?
There are. So with the federal Farm Bill, it did, as I said, allowed hemp to become a legal substance federally, as long as it met certain guidelines. The THC limit, which that's the
good stuff.
That's the good stuff.
Okay.
That's the high. That is the as the official term would be the psychoactive ingredient.
Psychoactive.
Yes, yeah, but it is the high in marijuana. It has to be controlled. So for it to be qualify as hemp, the limit of THC is 0.3%, nothing more. Anything more than that, and it becomes marijuana. So also what it allowed is states can regulate, states license hemp growers. So that now happens. that had somewhat happened previously, but now with the federal bill coming out, these states are going to regulate. And if states don't, USDA has guidelines that are coming out to do that as well. So also allowed farm crop insurance. Crop insurance now can be taken out on hemp products. But because of all that, the licensing for hemp growers has absolutely exploded. I know in the state of Tennessee, we have 3,800 licenses, active licenses for hemp growers. That's roughly 51,000 acres as of November 1. So it's a exploding industry.
So folks out there getting their license and in various states, of course, Tennessee being an example, I think Georgia, where I am, is applicable. I think it's applicable in Alabama and some of other states that we have a presence in. So when that happens, what issues does that create for financial institutions, not only in banking the specific entity that maybe is growing the hemp, if you will, but the other entities associated with how that all transpires?
Right. So this industry touches a lot of different industries and a lot of different people. You have those that are directly involved with the growing of the product. So you have those that are the growers, the people that are packaging it, selling the seed. You have retailers. But then you drop back from that and you have some indirect folks involved with it as well, where you'll have employees who are working there. You'll have software provider, payment processors. You'll also have, even dropping back further than that, you'll have landlords that are leasing property to these in the industry. You'll have accountants that are servicing the industry, attorneys. So the broad reaching impact of this is pretty incredible when you step back and look at it. And it's something that financial institutions have to look at.
And so it would kind of, I guess, the entities that grow hemp and all the ancillary entities that touch it in some way, those all could be potentially viewed as inherently high risk, I guess, in the BSA realm.
Absolutely they would be. I think as you look at those industries and those servicing, you have to go through that risk assessment consideration if they are, because you don't know sometimes how the product you're acquiring may be legal hemp, but where did it come from? Was it with someone that was also growing marijuana as well? That's not legal. So it creates that lack of reconciliation again.
So, and for the listener, we are talking about, to be accountant-like, we are talking about inherent risk. We're not talking about the residual risk. So obviously you can have controls and processes in place to manage that inherent high risk and get it to an acceptable level. So that's the Farm Bill and kind of where we are. But so what other legislation is pending or out there that is impacting our banks?
Right. So as of right now, it's the Secure and Fair Enforcement Banking Act, the SAFE Banking Act, which is out there right now. It's passed the House and on its way to the Senate now. So it's making its way through Congress. And what it in essence does is, because you've had this conflict between federal and state legislation, and you have people that are providing products that are illegal from a federal sense. How do the federal regulators see that? So what this bill is trying to do is to allow financial institutions to work with those cannabis businesses, and then also, which is most important for the financial institutions, to prohibit the federal regulators from actually penalizing the financial institutions if they're serving the industry, as long as they're complying with state law. But that's a big deal, because right now there's such a disconnect that financial institutions don't know what to do.
And probably you should have mentioned this on the front end, but if you step back from it, I mean, we're talking about right now an industry that's in the billions, and there's billions of dollars being produced by this industry, and from a federal standpoint, they actually should not have a bank. Right.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
So the implications are substantial, to say the least. So based on where we are, and so our banks and credit unions are out there, and they've had legislation passed in their states that says these entities are legal, and these folks are going to be looking for banks. If you're particularly a smaller bank or credit union with maybe less resource and expertise in some of these areas, kind of what are the things that they should be considering pending, the SAFE Act being passed and going into law?
Right. So right now, looking at any kind of guidance that's out there discussing these types of industries is where the focus needs to be. But that's one of the problems, is there's not a lot of information from the federal regulators on the topic. One of the most common piece of guidance right now that's out there was from FinCEN 2014, which talks about BSA considerations as it relates to marijuana-related businesses. So that's really been the primary driver up until recently. And one of the problems, though, with that guidance, though, is it didn't really define what a marijuana-related business is. It did go through some considerations from a compliance standpoint of what you need to do with your customer due diligence, with SAR filings. It had some requirements on that based on the information you had on these SAR or transactions that needed SAR filings. It gave you some guidance on that and CTRs, but it didn't define what a marijuana-related business is. Now, though, with the hemp being federally legalized, it's pulled out of being truly a marijuana business. So the problem's been not having that information, though, strictly from the federal regulators of financial institutions on what to do. Back in August of 2019, the federal regulator for the credit union industry, the NCUA, came out with guidance about serving the hemp businesses. So there was some guidance in there on risk assessments, on what to do, things to consider. So that came out and has been out there for a couple, 3 months. We found out last week that FDIC made mention that they're going to have in coming weeks some interagency guidance along with Federal Reserve, the OCC.
Right, I saw that.
Right. And with also FinCEN is going to be involved in that. They're going to come out with in a few weeks on interagency guidance. So that'll help.
Right. So we're looking at some significant pending legislation, significant pending regulatory guidance. Obviously, all of our clients are very keen on what comes out, particularly from FinCEN and the Joint Regulatory Group from the FFIC, as to they usually don't do much until they see that guidance, and then they seek to adhere to it. So
one of the other things too that I forgot to mention is that from the Conference of State Bank Supervisors, there's a tool that they've issued to train their regulators, the state regulators and examiners, on questions to ask as they go out into financial institutions that they regulate. That it's called the Cannabis Job Aid. And what it does is it splits that job aid into a hemp job aid and a marijuana job aid. And it's really a resource for the examiners to go into a financial institution and ask questions on what they're doing. So it's a good tool for a financial institution to use to be able to see what regulators and examiners may be asking, and it's updated continuously as the information comes out. So it's a good tool.
So a lot of moving parts, and if you kind of look at it and go, okay, from a obviously we're providers of services and we do a lot of things in and around BSA, AML. If one of our clients, one of our smaller, less complex, if you will, banks or credit unions said, "Hey, Rob, what are the 3 or 4 things I should be doing right now?" What would you say?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, the question has to be, do you want to bank it? Do you have the ability to bank it? Do you have the necessary tools to be able to bank customers in this industry? Because of the high risk involved in it, there is enhanced procedures and robust procedures and compliance programs that need to be put in place. If you decide to do it, you have to then determine what's a marijuana related business. How are you going to define that? Because it's not defined in the FinCEN guidance. And there's a publication out there actually right now that came out a couple of years ago that actually sets a framework for risk assessing marijuana related businesses and breaks them down into 3 risk tiers, with the first risk tier being a tier that's directly touching the product. And then the lowest tier being those that aren't touching the product and aren't directly providing products and services to those marijuana related businesses. Those that are, like I mentioned earlier, that are providing services, landlords, accountants, attorneys. So that's a helpful tool for financial institutions to look at to be able to risk assess. Also need to obviously consider policies and procedures as we're going through this. Definitely risk assessing overall, servicing the industry overall. You decide to do it, risk assessing individual customers that you're dealing with, and then training staff. You have to have not only staff, but at the board level and at the management level, providing training on learning about the rules, the state rules that are in place, and this guidance we've been talking about, what's out there to familiarize themselves and learn the topic.
Well, it's a very interesting topic, thought provoking from a variety of perspectives, and so with the pending legislation, it sounds like there's a lot of pending guidance. Usually, that means that banks and credit unions in a scenario like this would have questions, and so our BSA AML professionals are well trained in this arena. We're monitoring the activities, and we'll be evaluating and disseminating information as it comes forth. And we stand ready to help both our clients and prospective clients.
Yes, we do.
Hey, Rob, well, thank you for your time today.
If you want more CRI insights or are interested in learning about our firm, please visit our website at cricpa.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of It Figures, the CRI podcast. You can subscribe to It Figures on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to your podcasts. If you liked what you heard today, please leave us a review.